Good morning, scholars, and happy Friday! We are now on our 7th chapter of Wind in the Willows. Today, all you will need is a pencil and a skills packet, and then by the end of the day, you're going to turn in Friday, September 18th, ELA. I do want you to pay close attention to your assignment description today. You are going to see an Edulastic in there rather than a Google Slides. I realized that just wasn't working that well, so we're going to try Edulastic today. Some of you will also see Google Form. If you are, if you've been assigned a Google Form, that means I want you to read another passage for me today and answer some more questions, just like the last 2 days. So that would be your first step, and then the Edulastic. Not everyone will see the Google Form, and that's okay. So let's get started. We are going on to Lesson 7, which is Dolce Domum Part 2. So that again means Home Sweet Home. Today we're going to explain how characters in a story demonstrate the theme of hospitality. Be thinking about that because this question will be on your exit ticket. We're going to read the chapter aloud. Some of you will work on your beginning of year assessment, and then everyone will complete their exit ticket for Edulastic. I'm just going to remind you of the vocab words today because in your exit ticket you will have to match them up. So pay close attention and remember what each of these words means. Hospitality. So that's treating guests well and being warm, welcoming, and friendly toward them. Forage. So this is to seek, search, or look around. So you might forage for berries if you're going off in the woods to look for maybe blackberries. But foraging is to search. And then finally, slumber. This means to sleep. So you have hospitality, slumber, and forage. So remember that a theme is something that occurs throughout a story, and our themes that we have seen so far are friendship, and that was happening when Mole was packing up the picnic basket, loyalty, when Rat decides that he would go even though Mole didn't want to, responsibility, irresponsibility, and hospitality. Today we're going to see if we can find examples of hospitality in the story. We've looked at perspective, how someone sees something, dialogue, the words characters say to each other, and narration, and this is who tells the story and how the story is told. That would be from the narrator's perspective. Let's get started. It was close and airless, and the earthy smell was strong. The Mole struck a match, and by its light the Rat saw that they were standing in an open space. The space was neatly swept and sanded underfoot. Directly facing them was Mole's little front door, with Mole End painted in Gothic lettering over the bell pull at the side. So that's just this fancy writing back here. Mole took down a lantern from a nail on the wall and lit it, and the Rat, looking round him, saw that they were in a sort of forecourt. A garden seat stood on one side of the door, and on the other a roller. The Mole was a tidy animal, and he could not stand having his ground kicked up by other animals and into little heaps. Down on one side of the forecourt ran a skittle alley, with benches along it and a little wooden table. In the middle was a round pond. So skittles is like a lawn game similar to bowling, and a skittle alley is a bowling alley, except it's outside on a lawn. Mole's face beamed at the sight of all these objects. He hurried Rat through the door, lit a lamp in the hall, and took one glance round his old home. Immediately he saw the dust lying thick on everything, saw the cheerless, deserted look of the long-neglected house, and collapsed again on a hall chair. "Oh, Ratty," he called dismally, "why ever did I do it? Why did I bring you to this poor, cold little place on a night like this?" So Mole has not been in his house for a while, and he was in the middle of spring cleaning the last time he was in it, but he didn't finish. And now it's been several months. So he's kind of regretting bringing Rat to his home because he's embarrassed. The Rat paid no heed to him. He was running here and there, opening doors, inspecting rooms and cupboards, and lighting lamps and candles. "What a capital little house this is," he called out cheerily. "Everything here and everything in its place. The first thing we want is a good fire. I'll fetch the wood and the coals, and you get a duster." So Rat isn't even paying attention to the dust. He is just complimenting Mole on his home and trying to make him feel okay about the situation. So this is the lawn roller on the left and the Skittle Alley on the right. Those words came up in the chapter so far. Encouraged by his companion, the mole dusted and polished with energy, while the rat soon had a cheerful blaze roaring up the chimney. He hailed the mole to come and warm himself, but Mole promptly had another fit of blues. "Rat," he moaned, "how about your supper, your poor, cold, hungry, weary animal? I've nothing to give you." "What a fellow you are for giving in," said the rat calmly. "Why, only just now I saw a sardine opener on the kitchen dresser, and everybody knows that means there are sardines about somewhere. Pull yourself together and come with me and forage." They went on and foraged accordingly, hunting through every cupboard and turning out every drawer. The results were not so very depressing after all. A tin of sardines, a box of Captain's biscuits, nearly full, and a German sausage encased in silver paper. "There's a banquet for you," observed the rat as he arranged the table. "No bread," groaned the butter. "No," groaned the mole. "No butter. No caviar, no champagne," continued the rat, grinning. "And that reminds me, what's that little door at the end of the passage? Your cellar, of course." So caviar is an expensive dish with salty fish eggs, and champagne is a fancy, fizzy type of wine. So he's joking with the mole. Mole is complaining about bread and butter, and rat then mentions these lavish items that they clearly didn't need, and he was trying to make Mole feel better. Rat made for the cellar door and presently reappeared with a bottle in each paw and another under each arm. "Now wherever did you pick up those, Prince? Make them the place look so homelike they do. No wonder you're so fond of it, Mole. Tell us all about it and how you came to make it what it is." The mole, much cheered by Rat's fine compliments, took time to show off his splendid abode. The rat, though desperately hungry, allowed the mole to hold court. So even though he's really hungry, he's still letting him tell him all about his home to make him feel better. So he's being a very good friend. At last, the rat succeeded in decoying him to the table, and had just got seriously to work with the sardine opener when sounds were heard from the forecourt without. Sounds like the scuffling of small feet and a confused murmur of tiny voices. "Now all in a line. Hold the lantern up a bit, Tommy. Clear your throats first. Where's young Bill?" "What's up?" inquired the rat. "I think it must be the field mice," replied the mole. "They go round carols singing regularly at this time of year. I used to give them hot drinks and supper, too, sometimes." "Let's have a look at them," cried the rat, jumping up and running to the door. It was a pretty sight that met their eyes. In the forecourt, lit by the dim rays of a lantern, some 8 or 10 little field mice stood in a semicircle. They had red scarves around their necks, and their forepaws were thrust deep into their pockets. With bright, beady eyes, they glanced shyly at each other. As the door opened, one of the elder ones that carried the lantern proclaimed, "Now then, 1, 2, 3, and forthwith their shrill little voices rose up into the chill night air. When their voices ceased, the singers exchanged sidelong glances, but for a moment only. Then, from up above and far away, down the tunnel they had so lately traveled, came the sound of distant bells ringing a joyful and clangorous peal. So that's the loud clanging or ringing of bells. "Very well sung," cried the rat heartily. "And now come along in and warm yourselves." "Yes, come along, field mice," cried the mole eagerly. "This is quite like old times. Shut the door after you. Pull up that settle to the fire. Now you just wait a minute while we—" "Oh, Ratty," he cried in despair, "we've nothing to give them." "You leave that all to me," said the masterful rat. "Here, you with the lantern, I want to talk to you. Tell me, are there any shops open at this hour of night?" "Why, certainly, sir," replied the field mouse respectfully. "At this time of year our shops keep open to all sorts of hours." "Then look here," said the rat. "You go off at once, you and your lantern, and you get me—" Here much muttered conversation ensued, such as, "Fresh, mine. No, a pound of that will do. If you can get it there, try somewhere else. Yes, of course, homemade." Finally, there was a clink of coin passing from paw to paw. The field mouse was provided with a basket for his purchases, and off he hurried. The rest of the field mice, perched in a row on the settle, their small legs swinging, gave themselves up to the enjoyment of the fire. So Rat, realizing there isn't enough food for all of the carolers, decides that he's going to send one of them off to buy food, and he's going to pay for everybody to have a meal tonight. The rat, meanwhile, was busy examining the labels on one of the bottles. "I perceive this to be ginger beer," he remarked approvingly. "The very thing. Now we shall be able to mull some ginger beer. Get the things ready, Mole, while I draw the corks." So that's kind of like root beer. It did not take long to prepare the brew, and soon every field mice was sipping and coughing and choking, for a little mulled ginger beer goes a long way, and wiping his eyes and laughing. "They act plays, too, these fellows," the Mole said to the rat. Make them up all by themselves, and very well they do it, too. They gave us a capital one last year, about a field mice who was captured at sea by pirates. Here you were in it. Get up and recite a bit." The field mouse addressed got up on his legs, giggled shyly, looked round the room, and remained absolutely tongue-tied. His comrades cheered him on. Mole coaxed and encouraged him, and the rat went so far as to shake him, but nothing could overcome his stage fright. The now mute field mice was saved from further encouragement by the sound of the door opening. The field mouse with the lantern had reappeared with a heavy basket. There was no more talk of play acting once the contents of the basket had been tumbled out onto the table. Under the generalship of Rat, everybody was set to do something. In a very few minutes, supper was ready. As they ate, they talked of old times. They clattered off at last, very grateful indeed. When the door had closed on the last of them, Mole and Rat kicked up the fire, drew their chairs in, and discussed the events of the day. At last, the Rat, with a tremendous yawn, said, "Mole, I'm ready to drop. That your own bunk over on that side? Very well then, I'll take this." Rat clambered into his bunk and rolled himself well up in the blankets as slumber gathered him in. So, at the beginning of this read aloud, Mole looks around dismally at his empty, dusty home, and he experiences the blues over the state of his home. How does Rat help Mole? So what does he do to help him get past this feeling of being upset? So he lights a fire, he helps Mole clean up a bit, and then he tells Mole that he has a capital home, which means a wonderful home, and then he helps him look for food. How is the theme of hospitality demonstrated throughout the characters' actions today? So where did we see hospitality in today's story? So Rat and Mole were very hospitable to the carolers, or the singers, because they let them into their home, and Rat acts hospitably by buying food and drinks for the carolers, even though he's not in his own home. So he sent someone else out for food and then paid for it. Mole was hospitable to Rat because he offered him a place to sleep. All right, so now we are on to our independent practice. So if you see this assigned in your assignment description today, then this is your first step. Just like the last 2 days, you're going to read a passage and then answer the questions below. Again, take your time and do your best. This is something I want you to read by yourself, not with an adult, and try to answer the questions the best you can based on what you read. It is okay if it is too challenging. This is just for me to know some information. It's not for a grade. So do your best. Once you finish that, if that was assigned to you, you're going to work on the Edulastic assignment for today. It will have 3 questions that you need to answer. If you don't see this Google form here in your assignment, that means it was not assigned to you. You don't need to worry that you don't see it. That is okay. You would just skip to the Edulastic. These are the 3 questions you're going to see. First, you're going to match the theme to each definition, so you'll drag and drop the answer into its place. Next, you'll match the vocabulary words to their definition. So the last slide had to do with themes. This slide has to do with our vocabulary words today. So you'll pick up the definition, drop it into place. And then finally, you're going to answer this question. It asks you, how is the theme of hospitality demonstrated through the characters' actions in today's read aloud? If you're not sure, you can go back in the video where we discussed that question and use it to help you answer yours. You'll find this assignment under Classwork, Week 2, and then find and click on Friday, September 18th, ELA. When you're done with both of those 2 assignments, don't forget to turn it in. But we would never turn it in unfinished. We have to finish the Edulastic first and the Google form if you were assigned it, and then turn it in. So, step 1, for some scholars, not all, the SRA. Step 2, the Edulastic. And then turn it in. That's it. If you have any questions, please call or text me, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.